Tens of millions of Canadians make New Year's resolutions, but are there important aspects of life they're missing in doing that? Well, helping us to explore that is the author of Living into Focus, Choosing What Matters in an Age of Distractions. He's the Associate Professor at Tyndale University, Reverend Dr. Arthur Boers. Welcome to Context.
Good to see you.
Thank you. There are so many things on our agenda.
Right.
You've even got a New Year's resolution, I understand, about being so busy. Tell us what your resolutions are going to be.
Well, it's an ongoing struggle for me, is that I find that I get involved in too many commitments, and I'm not always sure that I pay proper attention to the priorities that I've named as being most important in my own life.
Put us in your expertise now as a Christian teacher. What did God wire us for? What are the things we should be looking and longing for as we set this resolution into the new year?
God wired us to be in relationship with God and to have deep, meaningful relationships with other people. And God wired us in such a way that there is enough time in life for the things that are most important.
How can you be so sure of that? Those are three really attractive things,
okay,
but a lot of people don't get them. Like, they don't receive them in life. They don't have meaningful relationships. They don't have enough time. They don't have a relationship with God.
Okay. For me, the doctrine of Sabbath means that God promises us that there's enough time in life for the things that are important, the things that count. To practice Sabbath seriously means that there is enough time in life to do the work that we need to do, but there's also enough time in life to worship as God has designed us to worship, and to rest and enjoy relationships.
And for those who, that's a new word, Sabbath, it means a 24-hour rest in a 7-day cycle.
Right.
Somewhere you've leaned into that.
Yes.
Okay. Relationship. Some people just say, you know what, I'm an introvert, I'm a loner.
Well, I am an introvert, Lorna, so introverts doesn't mean that you don't have relationships or that you're not interested in relationships. Being an introvert simply means that you get energy from being by yourself. So after you spend time with other people, you might need to be by yourself for a little while. When I was a pastor, my congregation didn't know that I was an introvert because I was preaching, I was leading worship and meetings and shaking hands and checking in with people. But what they didn't know was on Sunday afternoon, I'd have to go home and take a nap for a little while.
You mentioned that part of the focus that our psyche is created to be is in relationship with God. Where do I begin on that resolution that I'm going to get to know God this year? Where do I begin?
I always counsel my students to begin small on those kinds of resolutions and build up, because one of the dangers is that we make resolutions that are too big. We can't keep them, then we fail and we give up. And it's better to start with something limited and build up from there. So I would say, read a chapter a day in the Bible, or read a one-page devotional book every day. Start small. Okay.
Do you think we need to restart ourselves every January 1, like we have just done? Is that a good thing?
Well, in some ways it's an artificial construct, of course, but it is meaningful to have significant moments in our lives where we reorient or we start again. Could be a retreat, could be January 1st. Actually, the Methodists have a very meaningful service that they celebrate every January 1st as a time of renewal. Watch night service, a time of renewal around January 1st. But it could also be your wedding anniversary, it could be the anniversary of your baptism, could be your birthday. I think it is helpful to have certain points along the way where we take stock and we readjust.
I've always felt God is a champion of new beginnings.
Okay.
And that it's just a matter of saying, I will. I think there's that idea that we just have to do a lot of things, but I think there's also just a surrender of my will. And God comes in then, doesn't he?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I like that distinction that you make, because I think it's a very important distinction to talk about releasing ourselves to God and not determining that we can do it all on ourselves, to do it by ourselves. We need God, and actually we need other people too. And this is one of the great things, I think, about being people of faith, because we can draw on the faithfulness of those who are around us, and the faithfulness of those who preceded us. There are a lot of studies now about social contagion that suggest that both bad habits and bad practices are communicated by the group around us. So things like overeating, smoking, depression, those are deeply affected if that's what's happening with those around us as well. But also happiness, disciplined living, responsible use of food and substances also is communicated by those around us. So it's hugely important to think about what are the practices of those around us. For me, the great example is when I drive on the highway. And I always, I'm a good Christian and a law abider, and plus I want to save gas because I'm cheap, and I'm committed to the environment. So I always decide I'm going to drive at the speed limit.
They make it impossible out here on the 401, don't they?
Yeah, everybody around you drives well over the speed limit. And so if you drive the speed limit, you're a nuisance, people get annoyed with you. And if you're not aware of it, you're probably a better citizen than I am. But if I'm not aware of it, what happens is I just get swept along by what everybody else is doing. And before I know it, my wife is saying, and what speed are we going right now?
Yeah. Okay, Arthur
Social contagion.
You've been a good challenge to us on New Year's resolution and In Focus, your new book. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lorna.
After the break, some closing thoughts on resolutions. Thank you. Great. The media doesn't often handle the issue of self-discipline. Marketing is about indulge, want more, reach for another. It creates cravings. And God warns us that indulgence is a recipe for pain. And instead, the Bible welcomes us to work on the spiritual discipline of self-control. And being strong in self-control has a sidekick, spiritual surrender. Eyes not on the physical reality of what we want, but on the spiritual truth of what is better for us. I resolve. It is a great way to start the new year. Keeping that resolve has a companion in the promise of Scripture that we can do all those things through Christ who strengthens us. It seems like a great partner for the challenges ahead. Well, as always, send us your feedback on today's program. Call the viewer feedback line or send a message via email, Facebook, or Twitter. And for all of us, I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching and Happy New Year. Join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines.